Hey everyone, welcome back to the McDonald Chronicles. Today is a fun one. So we are actually going to read Murder in the Family. If you want to read this book, I suggest reading it before you watch the videos. So go ahead and pause, get the book, read it, and then come back because there will be spoilers. So just a warning there. This book is following a group of people trying to figure out what happened to Luke Ryder in 2003. So 20 years ago, he was murdered in a posh London town, and this group is trying to figure out what is going on. So it's a fictional story based on the documentary that's happening. So basically we are getting snippets of them filming the documentary, all the players involved in that, and then witnesses from back then. So I thought it would be fun if I tried and solve the murder along with the people in the documentary. And you might be wondering, Gianna, what makes you qualified to solve this murder? Let me tell you. Number one, I have read all of the Nancy Drew books, so that's first. Number two, I have watched countless hours of Murder, She Wrote. Number three, I sometimes, on very rare occasions, can guess the ends of thrillers. And those are my qualifications. So none. I just thought it would be a lot of fun to try and guess it. So I have gotten to, what page am I on? Page 155. I thought it'd be fun if I told you what my thoughts are so far. So if you're up to that page, this would be a great spot for you to see where you're at. If you are reading this along with me, please leave it in the comments below what you think is going to happen. I'm so excited. I think this is a really, really cool book. So let's dig in. All right, so to keep track of what's going on, I made myself a little slideshow because I'm taking this very seriously, obviously. So we have our victim in the middle, Luke Ryder. He was in his early 20s. He was Australian. His parents died when he was young. So he's kind of by himself, a loner. He was never one to settle down, but he married an older woman named Caroline, who we will get to in a moment. He was found in the garden of his home. The cause of death was blunt force trauma. He was basically then beaten to death. So he was whacked on the back of his head and then beaten to death. And the time of death is anytime between 9:20 and 10:20 p.m. So we have basically an hour window of when the killer could have been there. All right, then we have our suspects. So I've got 6 suspects here. That's kind of what I'm thinking and what the cast has alluded to. So we'll see. I don't know. If more pop up, I guess I'll need another slide. Who knows? All right, so we have Caroline Ryder, whose maiden name is Howard. Well, not even her maiden name. This is her second marriage. So her motive was potentially she was having an affair. That this just came out. She was cleared 20 years ago, but apparently her daughters just released that she was having an affair. So maybe that was her motive. Maybe money. Been speculated that Luke had a bunch of inheritance coming his way. She was at a party with friends, and it was that type of party where people were coming in and out. So no one really knows if she was there between the hours of 9:20 and 10:20. So it's a little bit of a shaky alibi. Witnesses at the party also say that towards the end of the evening, she was pale, but she shouldn't have known about the murder yet because the police had to come get her from the party. So bit of a gray area there. Some new information coming out. Some things to note about her: she married her first husband less than a year after his wife died in a car crash, and she was the nanny. So her husband left a hefty sum of money for her and his kids, and basically how it works is she gets to use the money while she's alive, and then when she's gone, all of the money passes to the kids. And supposedly she was running through the money like crazy. So they made a point to mention that. I'm not really sure how that's important because I don't feel like someone would kill Luke over that. I feel like they'd kill her. Then we have Guy Howard, who is the stepson. I don't really feel like he has a motive. He was 10 years old at the time. He was the only one home. He was asleep. In his version of the story, Luke sent him to bed, and then he was awoken by his sisters basically telling him that Luke was dead. He's the one that's directing this whole documentary because he wants to find out the truth. Maybe it's money, I don't know, but he's a question mark for me. Then we have Rupert, who is another stepson. So Rupert is Caroline's stepson as well. He is the son from the Howard's first marriage. So Caroline was his nanny, then his stepmom, and then basically that. So I don't really know what his motive would be. I don't really know why he would kill Luke. I can see why he would kill Caroline, but I don't really get why he would kill Luke. He was at a dinner party 2 hours away, but apparently he got a suspicious phone call around 8:30, which he's saying it didn't happen. He won't discuss the phone call. But again, he was 2 hours away, so he could have maybe orchestrated the murder, but he certainly didn't do it himself. Something to note is he was actually friends with Luke first and brought Luke to a party at Caroline's house, and that's how Luke and Caroline ended up together. And then we have Maura and Emily Howard. I put them together because only one of the daughters right now is actually doing the documentary. The only reason we know both of them is because there are some text messages going back and forth. I have no idea what their motive would be for murdering Luke. Nothing really has come out making me think that they would want him dead. And their alibi was that they were at the movies or the cinema at the time. Maura, however, is the one who found him. And they're doing some, like in the book, there are some text messages going back and forth between the sisters, which are kind of suspicious and make me feel like maybe the girls are hiding something. But I don't know. I just don't understand what their motive would be. And then we have Mitchell Clark, who is a reporter. He's actually one of the people trying to figure out what happened to Luke right now. So the interesting about Mitchell is that he was on the scene when Luke died, basically. So he approached the house when Luke was recently dead. And we don't really know why he was there. According to him, he was hiding in the bushes, and then according to the police, he was standing over the body. And then lastly, we have this mystery King's Cross person. We have no idea who this is. We don't know what their motive would be. We don't know what their alibi is. Luke got a call around 9 o'clock, and we know this from Guy. He got a call earlier on in the day from a mysterious phone number that came from a King's Cross payphone. We don't know who it was. We don't know who he talked to, but the cast is saying like, okay, maybe this person is the one that killed Luke. So here we are. I have a lot of information and it means nothing, and I have no idea. Who do I think on page 155 is a possible suspect? Honestly, right now I'm going with the stepdaughters. It makes absolutely no sense. They have no motive, but they were at the movies, supposedly, and they were the ones to find him, supposedly. And the weird text messages going back and forth. One of the sisters didn't want to do the documentary, and it seems convenient that the sisters just remembered about the mom's affair as they're being questioned about the murder again 20 years ago later. Like, wouldn't that have been relevant in 2003 when Luke was killed, but no one ever talked about it? So that is where my brain is taking me. That is what I have so far. So I will check back in when I read a little bit more, and we'll see where we're at. Okay, it's me. I'm back, your resident Nancy Drew, to tell you more about Murder in the Family. So my plan really wasn't to update you all for a few more days. And then last night I started reading, thinking I'll read for like 10 minutes, a few pages, no big deal. 10 minutes turned into a few hours, and I have read, I think, 200 pages since we last spoke yesterday. So it took a turn. I literally now have no idea what's going on. This is much harder than I thought. Reading 45 Nancy Drew books does not make you a detective, in case you were wondering. So basically what I was doing was, while I was reading, because it was so late I wasn't gonna take out my camera and film, I started just like ferociously taking notes on my phone about what I thought at each page so that I could kind of see where we're at. So after page 250, basically my thoughts were, oh my goodness, Luke, the person who was murdered, is not even who we think he is. And then they thought he was another guy, and he's not even that guy either. So basically we don't even know who was murdered. And we don't even know if he was murdered because the murderer thought he was Luke, or because the murderer thought he was Ethan, or because the murderer knew who he actually was. But there's literally no way to find out who he actually was. So that kind of changes everything. As of page 250, I was still kind of leaning towards the stepdaughters, the sisters. They just, like, through the text messages in the book, they just seem like they're hiding something. I don't know exactly what it is that they're hiding. It might be nothing related to the actual murder at all, but there's something going on there. So I was definitely leaning towards them. And then on top of that, one of the staff members, Layla, I think her name is, hold on. Yeah, Layla. She's the forensic and clinical psychologist. So she's one of the people that's like trying to figure out the murder. She sent one of the reporters to Australia to find more about Luke, because when we thought he was Luke, that's where Luke was from. But when she sent him there, she gave him a contact and was basically like, make sure he knows only what he's supposed to know, which I thought was kind of weird. So I thought that was weird, but didn't really pick anything up on it. And then the real Luke Ryder left Australia because supposedly, not proven, but they have deduced that he may have killed someone in a hit and run accident while he was drinking. So then he basically left Australia and went to a different country. And that's kind of part of how he ended up in London. But I guess it wasn't really him that ended up in London, because the real Luke is dead. But anyway, backtrack. So the man who was killed in a hit and run incident was a student, and his last name was Khan. And the reporter working on this case found out that Layla's maiden name is Khan. And she was like, oh, it's just a really popular Muslim name, like no relation to the guy whatsoever. I don't believe that. And they even have a text message or a voicemail that she leaves to her mom, and she's like, hey, I need to talk to you about something. So maybe the guy who was killed was her brother? Now I'm wondering if it was like a bunch of people killed him. Like, someone went to kill him because they thought he was Luke. Maybe someone else went to kill him because they thought he was Ethan. And then maybe mysterious King's Cross man actually knew who he was, and they all just like worked together to kill him, and we're dealing with a group murder. I don't know. So that's where I was at on page 250. I thought Layla was acting suspiciously, leaning towards his stepdaughter still, because something about it just does not sit right with me. And then I had pretty much taken Caroline, the wife, out of it. She just didn't really seem like anything. Then 5 pages later, I literally took out my phone again and wrote, oh my God, just kidding, Caroline's my number one. The book, after every like taping, so they go through like the lines of the taping, and then they have like reactions to that taping. And so there's like it's almost like a Reddit forum, I guess you would say, where people are trying to like figure out what happened based on what they say in the story. And someone talked about, not even saying it was Caroline, but someone talked about a completely different murder where there was this, they talk about like the Peter Pan psychosis in here, kind of where like men think like they're acting younger, because now we're not even sure if the person who was pretending to be Luke Ryder was actually in his 20s or if he was just playing that. But anyway, they allude to this whole situation where there was a guy who was pretending to be younger, married this older woman, and ended up killing her. And the way he killed her was by giving her like a shot of something, and then it gave her a heart attack basically, but it was untraceable. Guess how Caroline's husband died? A heart attack. So now I'm thinking maybe Caroline and Luke, fake Luke, knew each other beforehand. And Caroline used to be her first husband's nanny. His wife mysteriously dies in a car crash when she was supposedly drinking when she didn't drink. The husband dies of a heart attack after he's married the nanny less than a year after they've been together. And then this Luke shows up, who's not even Luke. And someone said to Caroline, like one of her friends, it comes out, said to her like, hey, that guy's not Australian, like he's lying. And she was basically like, yeah, I don't care, whatever, it's fine. Who does that? So now my current running theory is Caroline and fake Luke knew each other before this, and somehow they're like just Bonnie and Clyde situation, and that's why he got killed. That's my current running theory. All right, so that was my theory as of like page 255. Then we got to page 303. Let me tell you what happens on page 303, everyone. We find out that Caroline had a baby before she was married to Andrew. Do we know who that baby is? No. Do we know where that baby is? No. Do you know anything about this baby whatsoever? No. No, we don't. Now there's like this puzzle piece. So I'm gonna go and finish this, hopefully, in the next couple of hours or so. And hopefully I can figure out what is going on before it is revealed in the story, and we'll see what happens. All right, let us discuss Murder in the Family. So it has been a few days since I finished it. Did I see the ending coming? Was I able to guess it? No. So I really thought I was close. I really did. I thought I was onto something, guessing that it was the sisters, and I was on the right track, but again, I was wrong. And I'm going to be honest, I kind of hate it. Not just because I didn't guess it, but it seems sort of like a cop-out. The way the book ended, it ended up being the director, the one who put this whole thing together. He's the one that ended up killing his stepdad, but he had no recollection of it. So basically what they said was the sister, the middle sister, found him, realized what he had done, washed his clothes, put him to bed. And then the oldest sister came home, saw the middle sister washing all these bloody clothes, and just assumed it was her. So this whole time, the middle sister knew it was the baby brother, the older sister thought it was the middle sister, and the baby brother had no idea that he even did anything because he had some inflicted trauma and just basically blacked it out. So overall, would I recommend this book? Obviously, if you've been watching this video, you've probably read it, or you don't care about having spoilers because there have been spoilers all throughout it. I really liked the format of this book. I thought it was really original. The fact that it was written, you know, as a documentary, I think it's hit or miss for some people. For myself, I don't mind that at all. Truthfully, when I'm reading it, I don't really read the character names, if that makes sense. I just kind of see it and I know that it's them. I don't really spend too much on like Bill Serafini said, like, and just go like that. I just kind of, once I realize it's a conversation, I'm just kind of, you can kind of tell who's saying what as you learn the characters. So I think for people who are just like reading the character name, they said, character name, they said, I feel like that can be very annoying and frustrating. And until you find the flow of the book, I definitely feel like the beginning feels like that, but I think it flowed nicely. It didn't bother me that it was written like that. And I also really liked how they were all sort of connected, which was nice. I did like that part, but it seemed kind of futile at the end because then it didn't really have anything to do with it. So you don't find out that they're all connected until the very end of the story, and then you're thinking, this is it. Like, they all did something together, or one of them is the murderer, and they're all gonna find this out, blah, 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 blah. And then it ends up just being the kid the entire time. Kind of seemed pointless that they all had this connection. It made for a good middle, but then it was just kind of left there. And then honestly, the part that I didn't like, that just felt like a gaping hole, was I felt like in the social media posts in the book, they were trying to make reference to the fact that they think Caroline may have killed her first husband, that they think she may have killed her first husband. And then it was never brought up again. So if you're gonna make that sort of accusation, don't you think you should look into it a little bit? That just kind of seemed like a gaping hole, making me think like, oh, maybe Caroline was the one that killed Luke. But then you're just saying that maybe she killed her first husband and leaving this like little nugget of information and then just completely letting it go. Unless it wasn't meant to be a nugget of information, but I felt like it was pretty purposeful. So that part did annoy me. Really up until like the last chapter, I was really enjoying it. And then the way that it ended just kind of fell apart a little bit for me. Having Guy be the murderer, I didn't see that coming, so that's a great twist, but it did, like I said before, just kind of feel like a cop-out because he doesn't even remember it. So it's not even like someone's hiding anything. It's like now it's just you're dealing with a murderer who doesn't even know they're a murderer. So how is that? It just seems kind of silly. But I think it's a really good one if you want to try and test your sleuthing abilities to see if you can figure out. If you guys like this style of video, let me know. Leave a comment, like the video, and I will definitely find another murder mystery and see if I can guess that one. So, Murder in the Family, wasn't able to fulfill my Nancy Drew dreams, but very good book.